debut album is here. It's entitled April Showers, May Flowers. I'm so glad that it's finally out. The title of the album, April Showers, May Flowers, came really from the idea that everybody has to work through something. I know I have. From the millionaire to the school child, everybody has to work through a scenario or a problem in their life. But if they persevere, stick with it, believe they can do it, then the Mayflowers do come. So it's that transition of the showers, as hard as they are, you can get through and have the blessings and the sunrise of the Mayflowers. The first track on the album is entitled Dear John, and I think it was going to be called Dear John even before the album process even started, because as people may know, I was studying my PhD in management science at the time, and I was touring and I was travelling around the world as well as doing my PhD research, and there came a point where I had to make a decision, and I spent many months thinking about it and finally decided to go with music and tell my supervisor that I was going to have to take a break. And he was really understanding, really consoling, and let me know that, you know, if you're going to go with music, do it strong. And his name is John, Professor John. And during the time of sort of before that touring and submitting papers in between, I was emailing him, Dear John, I'm really sorry I can't make it in today, or Dear John, please find attached. And I just knew that as a dedication to him for his support and from the whole university, I would entitle this song, Dear John. Tokyo Sunset is a reggae song, written in the reggae genre, and for me, growing up with that sort of music really was an inspiration to me. But then to relay it to Tokyo and Japan, I just really remember the cause of the earthquake that happened in Japan, and I had a concert to raise funds for the Tohoku Earthquake Relief Fund and working with the Japan Society. And also, whenever people meet me after concerts, they always ask me, have you played Japan yet? Have you played Japan? Which I haven't. I'm really looking forward to doing so and taking reggae there, because I know there's a huge appreciation for reggae in Japan. Fine Line was a new experience for me because becoming a Yamaha artist, I play Yamaha saxes, but I was given an alto sax. Tenor and soprano have always been my main, and I really wanted to incorporate this new sound or this new tone into my record. And so playing along with different ideas that we had with my producer, we came up with this melody and basing it in sort of a swing kind of vibe, but then changing it up for solos was something that I quite like. I love sections in music, which you'll get a lot in this album. So having a swing section and moving through into a sort of more funk feel, and showing that there's a fine line between what genres of music are. And I think that's what I always have to communicate when I'm speaking to people or playing to people, that just because we speak jazz doesn't just necessarily mean it's one genre. And there's a fine line between what reggae is, what jazz is, what swing is. It really can be anything that you want it to be, and I think that's the great thing about music. I grew up with such an eclectic mix of different genres of music. My dad on a Saturday morning would always play anything from classical to rock to folk to reggae and everything in between. And I think that's always been in my music. You wouldn't come to a YolanDa Brown concert and just have one strict genre. I take you through a journey of instrumentation and a journey of genres. And so I found it really important to explore this in my debut album, to say this is me, this is what I grew up with, this is what I'm bringing. So Yesterday is a classical piece of music, worked with a producer in Poland for this particular track on the arrangement, and using the soprano sax obviously to echo sort of an oboe, flute kind of sound, and bringing that knowledge of classical music that really is where music started for me. I think in young education in the UK especially, we're introduced to music through classical, and so it was important to have that. There's no gap between Yesterday and Today and Tomorrow on the album, simply because I want it to feel like one piece of music, but also they can coexist separately. But just having that natural move between classical music and then the drum beat of the Nyabingi coming through really is the mix of me, from British sort of upstanding classical music through to the rugged heartbeat of Nyabingi really is me, and that's what I want to get across for this project. Saxophone for me has always been my voice, really. It's been a way for me to process my emotions, also, of course, to make music, and I find it an easy way to communicate with audiences and to myself. Heartbeat was inspired by new birth. During the recording process, I was lucky and blessed to receive a goddaughter and a nephew, and just seeing them grow up and also holding them for the first time and feeling their heartbeats, feeling that I now had an extra responsibility as an aunt and a godmother to do well for them and to do well for myself, to show them what we can do. Kind of brought up an emotional feeling in me, and I did well up. And then sort of a melody came to me, which then I wanted to dedicate to them. For me, it's a very emotional song, and the soprano sax always gives a little bit of an emotional edge with its higher range. And yeah, the song came very naturally when making Heartbeat. On this, my debut album, April Showers, May Flowers, the whole writing process and creating process, there were so many different ways to do things. To write a melody, I could just sit down and play the saxophone a cappella in a room by myself. I could play along with my keyboardist, Oscar Stieler. I could write just lyrics and then create melodies after. And I found that when trying to communicate an idea and an emotion, I would end up writing lyrics and then putting them to music. And so then, after recording all of the songs, I was left with a pile of words that were not going to go anywhere. And so I made a decision to try and communicate that vocally, and really made some songs which I never envisioned making, actually, but they came to light. The first one, Without You, which was really based on the idea of a long-distance relationship, and also the first song without my saxophone, and the feeling of, I feel I can do this even though you're not with me, and I feel that you're close by, but I can do this on my own. And I hope that other people can identify with that, if it's to do with the relationships or whatever, but a feeling that was close to my heart. And the second song is Bittersweet. And Bittersweet really goes with the idea of the album, April Showers, May Flowers, that life can be bittersweet at times, but whatever we do, if we keep on, we can change it. And I think everybody can identify with that. And really, whenever recording or writing, it is a process of pulling something out of you, pulling emotions out of you, and also thinking about what you're trying to tell the person that's going to be listening on the other side. And although the process is rewarding at the end when we get to go on tour and play the music and I can explain it, it's also bittersweet that it's quite a hard graft sometimes, and being in the studio to all hours of the morning. So that's where that song came from. Recording this album was an enlightening process. I think for me, I'm so used to being on stage, being on tour, performing live, and obviously being around musicians, and so bouncing off the energy from the audience and from the people on the stage. So then being in a studio and being in a booth, it is a bit different, but it's nice to be able to create. If you have an idea, you can put it down and it's planted forever. So I think for me, obviously being my debut album, it's a wonderful experience to know that those ideas that we came up with, that I was carrying around with me, are now down on record forever. On stage, yes, I've had the honour of duetting and performing with some wonderful musicians and artists. I think for me, the one that sticks in my mind the most is The Temptations. Meeting Otis Williams in the Temps was just a remarkable experience, and doing a 20-date nationwide tour with them, and then being invited on stage to be the sixth Temptation was an honour, if I can say the least. And I think meeting Diana Krall, David Sanborn, YolanDa Brown, and of course my band of musicians as well that I tour with, has been an emotional experience, and really enlightening to see how different people work in music, how different people create, and also the magic that can come from being on stage. That's the most rewarding part, when you're playing your repertoire and your music that's on the album that people might have heard at home or never heard before, and seeing their reaction in the audience from the stage lets you know that music does touch people, and I think it always reminds me that it's important to make this music. It's important to put my emotions on track so that people can experience it. And if it's a ballad, and you might see a loved one reach over and hug their companion, or you might see someone wipe a tear if they're reminiscing about something, or smiling and dancing if we're in an up-tempo number. I think it's really important to see what music does to people, and keeps me going, really. Nothing to Say was actually a song that was the last song we recorded on the album, and it got to a point where some songs just weren't right for this particular project, and we were trying to create. Obviously, when it's getting to the end of the project as well, all your ideas are out on the table. And there was one song that we'd been performing live called Polish Jerk, one of the first songs I wrote with Oscar Stieler, and it was called Polish Jerk because he is originally from Poland. My parents are from Jamaica, and I love jerk chicken, so that always got the audience going. And it's a very up-tempo, funky track. And we kept writing these songs, and they all kept coming back to Polish Jerk. The main melody line just kept coming back. And so we thought, well, we need a new track. We've got nothing to say at all. Nothing's coming through. Polish Jerk is coming through. So let's make it an acoustic, sort of just piano and saxophone. But yet when we go on stage, we can choose between bringing Polish Jerk back and doing the up-tempo, or doing the more laid-back ballad type. So that was Nothing to Say. The final track on the album is entitled Good Morning, and usually at the end of a project you should be shutting down and saying good night. But for me, I wanted to follow the trend of the album and end on a high, Mayflowers, sort of the great things that are to come. And also to illustrate that it is my debut album. There's so many more tracks and albums and concepts to come. So this is now the show opener, and thank you for listening. I've really enjoyed making my debut album, April Showers, Mayflowers. It's a very emotional process, and it is all me. And so I hope that the audience can latch onto it and enjoy it also. And it's music that you can have on your iPod, you can take it around with you, you can have it in the car radio, and at home. So I hope that everyone enjoys it. There's so much more to come, and I look forward to playing it live and coming to a venue near them soon.